Okay, welcome Dewitt Jones. Thanks for joining in.
Well, thank you.
I have a few questions for you here. So first and foremost, this is a fun one. When did you get your first camera?
Wow. My first camera was an Argus C3 that my dad had during World War II. I really wasn't a photographer then. And I went, by the time I got to college, I'd taken a couple of photography courses, but it still wasn't my main thing. I went to Europe. I shot some really nice pictures. People told me I had a good eye, but it really wasn't until after college that I got really into photography.
Is that when the spark happened? I mean, it's almost like a fire when it finally lights up and you go, wow, there's something to this for me.
Well, there was, and I was lucky enough. I started out as a filmmaker. I had a master's in film from UCLA. I made a movie for National Geographic, and they saw my work then. And then I was in Yosemite doing a film on John Muir, and I saw a guy walking across in front of the visitor center. He turned out to be a geographic writer. I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing an article on Muir." And I made a phone call, and even though I'd never published any pictures anywhere, they gave me the assignment because they'd seen my movies. So my first published pictures were in National Geographic, which was totally nuts. And once I got into stills, the whole ethos of stills were so much more exciting to me than movies that I was hooked. And from then on, I've been a still photographer.
Talk about the power of still photography and what you meant by that statement.
Well, there are two or three things. One of them is just, I published a book, an ebook recently called Art in My Life. And that was trying to get at the idea that art and photography to me are a way of seeing. They're a way of looking at the world. The photograph is the residue of that. It's what's left over. It's really good residue, and I like it. But if I don't have the experience, if I don't go out and connect with something, if I don't see more deeply, then what was the point? Now, I know that I can take good pictures and not have a connection. That I can do. And I know some photographers who, I don't know how conscious they are, but they take great pictures, you know. But to me, the first place you ought to publish your pictures are in your life. The first place you ought to publish your pictures is the light that's coming out of your eyes, how you treat your family. That it ought to make a difference in how, you know. And to me, when I get connected to the world through my photography, I'm more grateful, I'm more compassionate, I'm more open. All of those things happen. That's more important to me. The experience is more important to me than the photograph. But I don't want it to be an either or. I want it to be a both and. So I want to do them both really well.
You share often, whether it's a client who you're teaching or even in your keynote talks, this idea of saying thank you. Speak a little bit about that ethos of your photography experience.
I think that if I look at when I'm happiest when I'm full of gratitude. And photography makes me stop not only to big vistas, but to, you know, a leaf on the trail or a dewdrop on a flower and just say thank you. So all of these pictures are little visual prayers. I tend to I think it's important that we articulate that out loud. So I wander around my garden in the morning going, thank you, thank you, thank you, as I take these little images, because that's what it is. It's a little visual prayer. That's exposing my soul. That's feeding me at a very deep level. And then on a equally important maybe but lesser level is the image itself and how it's crafted and what I do with it and what I do with it in Photoshop. But if I don't have that connection, if I don't stop and look, and one of the things that's so cool about digital is you can continue to look. In film, you took the picture and you immediately said, next, you know, thank you for the double rainbow over Half Dome, God, but what more do you have? And with digital, you can stay with that image. It's on the back of your camera. You can go back to it. You can go back into that experience. And then with either the apps on the iPhone or with Photoshop, you can stay way much more with that image than I ever could with stuff I shot on film. But there are a lot of times, especially with the iPhone, where I can just stay in that reverie with that image because it's right there and I'm continuing to look at it. I hope I go back. I mean, if it's a leaf on the road, that I look at it after I shoot it and really allow myself to connect with it. But then I hope that, 10 minutes later, I'll pull it up on the phone and I'll look at it again. And those images are now always with me, reminding me of what a cool thing it is to get to be conscious on this planet. Hmm. My iPhone's with me all the time. Mm-hmm. My iPhone's there as a little way to just stay more alive. So I shoot all the time with it, and I shoot things that I never would shoot with my big boy cameras because it'd be too much of a hassle, or all the tiny things of life I shoot with my iPhone. I was up at a fantastic overlook in the rain last week, pouring, didn't have my big boy cameras, shot a 10-image pano on my iPhone, ended up with a 67 megabyte file. I mean, it's glorious.
Just
with that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Stitched them together on Photoshop, and it was magnificent.
Well, I just want to see how you respond to this question that people ask often. Is photography art?
Oh, of course it's art. My photography is my interpretation of the landscape. And I'm out there having a three-dimensional, five-sensory experience. I'm going to squeeze it down into a two-dimensional, one-sensory experience in a small size. If I don't add me to it, you're just going to go, it's just the view from your driveway. I mean, why did you take it? So the real question in turning it into art, whether that's with just a digital darkroom or whether it's with apps or whatever, is your honesty. I mean, you to tell people say, well, God, I never saw an elephant in the sky before, and you say, no, I just felt like putting it in there. I mean, don't lie about what you're doing, sure. But it's your art, and I think that in terms of people collecting it and stuff, it's definitely art. I was lucky enough to do 2 articles for the Geographic, one on John Muir and one on Robert Frost, and I spent a year studying both those men, and it was a huge impact on my life. Muir's writings and Frost's poetry, and getting to go and sit and experience all the places that they did was very, very important to me. I did 2 major environmental stories for the Geographic, one that helped stop a strip mine at the base of Bryce Canyon, and one that really helped form the Queen Charlotte's, the national park, and the Canadian National Park, and the Queen Charlotte's. Those were really enriching and fulfilling in another way. And then the last 2, one of them is the Facebook thing that I have up now called facebook.com/celebrate what's right, where I ask people to come and put up images, but put them up with the writings of why they're a celebration. And, we've got about 8,000 pictures that have gone up in the last year. Yeah, not even a year yet. And people just using photography as celebration. That thrills me. And then the last one would be a project that I have called Healing Images, where photographers donate their work and we can sell big, beautiful prints to hospitals for the cost of making those prints. So those things make me excited.
I know you have a couple of favorite places in the world for sure. When people ask you that question, though, what's your favorite place on Earth? What do you say?
Well, my favorite place on Earth is Molokai, and I live here. It's really thrilling to me that the places I've most resonated with in my life, and I've been all over the world, they're all in the United States, and I can get to them easily. And one is Molokai, and I live here, and one is the Sierra Nevada, and I live there in the summer. And the other is the American Southwest, Zion and the Grand Canyon. I'm going on my 17th run through the Grand Canyon this summer, so I'm able to keep up with those places pretty well.
And do you mean run literally? Are you doing a marathon or something?
No. I'm running on a boat this time. I'm
all right.
The Canyon Dories. God, that would be great, but I don't think I'm there.
They do that, the rim to rim run, and right. They're in a parka at the top, and down at the bottom they're in shorts, and then run back up the other side. So
I'll be cheering you on from my deck chair.
If there was one image you could hang over your mantle at home, either home, we'll give you two answers. What image would that be? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've done a lot of, as you know, a lot of keynote speaking and a lot of lecturing. And I found two of my images to be the most iconic that I've ever shot. One of them is a picture of a single dandelion puffball against some clouds. That is just, people just, it touches something deep inside them. And I like it also because it was the 37th shot on a 36 roll of film that I just
a miracle.
Just got it. Last roll of film I had in my bag. And the other is a shot of my daughter in a hammock, so the hammock in front of her face, that just seemed to, it's interesting when something is so iconic and gets that deeply into people. And I've lectured to thousands and thousands of people showing these images. And I know it's coming, and I go, okay, and I click the button, and you just watch the audience go, oh, yeah. So there's something that it hits way, these are every social class, every monetary class, every ethnicity that I lecture, same thing. It's that aesthetic gasp, and those would be two of mine that did that. There aren't a lot, there are a lot of good images, but not too many that give you that aesthetic gasp.
Wonderful. Anything else that you would say to someone who maybe is just starting out, whether it's a big boy camera or it's their iPhone, and they're just getting that spark, they're starting to see in that fresh way that photography teaches us to see? Anything you would share with them?
Yeah, I would say, look, follow the passion. Don't get lost in the technology. That'll come. I mean, it'll come because you'll have an image and you won't be able to make it, and then you'll want to know. You'll have the energy to learn all the technology to make it happen. But don't let that overwhelm you at the beginning. Just go shoot. Set it on P. It stands for perfect, and just, it'll do it. The two things that the camera can never do, it can't decide what's in the frame and when do you push the button. It doesn't get to do that. It can do all the rest of it, or a heck of a lot of it, without our overriding anything. Okay, what's that called? That's called point and shoot. And people say, well, I don't want a little point and shoot camera. No, that's quite the essence of photography. And the people who know how to point it and how to shoot it, to really get clean on what's in the frame and to really know when to push that button, they're the great photographers. Doesn't matter what camera you give them. They'll shoot a great picture. And there are people I know who are super techie. They got thousands of gear and their pictures are just boring. I'm sorry. They don't know how to point and shoot. That's what got you into it. So stay with it until that energy just makes you say, well, I want to do it in this. And then you say, all right, I'll learn how to do infrared or black and white, or I'll finally get Photoshop, or whatever it is. But follow the passion, because that not only is what's going to give you your eye, but it's also what's going to expose your soul. And that's the whole point of it.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. If there's any one person that comes to mind when I think of coming alive with photography and staying alive with photography, it is Dewitt Jones. So thank you so much for joining us on here.
You bet.